The first sound is not gunfire. It is the wind, warm, salty air rolling across the deck as dawn breaks over the Philippine Sea. October 25th, 1944. Then the radar screams, contacts, too many, too large. Steel giants rise out of the morning haze. Pagoda masts, heavy cruisers, battleships, the kind of ships a destroyer is never meant to see this close. On the bridge of USS Johnston, a thin hull of steel, barely 370 feet long, men stare through binoculars at silhouettes that blot out the horizon. Each one carries guns larger than Johnston's entire superstructure, barrels as long as city buses, armor measured in feet, not inches. Someone whispers the word, battleships. The ocean is calm. Too calm. Then the first salvo lands. Columns of water erupt around the ship, towering white and violent, shaking the hull like a struck bell. The deck shudders underfoot. Paint flakes fall like snow. The smell of cordite drifts in seconds later, sharp, bitter, unmistakable. No one asks for confirmation. No one asks for orders. They already know. This is the center force of the Imperial Japanese Navy, and they are charging straight toward a group of escort carriers and destroyers known as Taffy 3, tin cans, jeep carriers, pilots still eating breakfast. On Johnston's bridge, the captain steps forward, calm, unflinching, all engines ahead full. The throttle goes down. The deck vibrates harder. The bow lifts as the destroyer surges forward. Alone, not away from the enemy, toward them, against the guns. She is not impressive at first glance, a Fletcher-class destroyer, thin-skinned, lightly armored, built for speed, not endurance, built to screen carriers, chase submarines, and die fast if caught by something bigger. Her hull rings hollow when waves slap against it. Her steel plates flex and groan in heavy seas. Every man aboard knows it. You can feel it through your boots when the engines push her past 30 knots. A constant trembling reminder that survival depends on never being hit. Her name is USS Johnston. Most of her crew are barely out of their teens. Farm boys, factory hands, college kids who traded classrooms for gun mounts. They sleep in cramped bunks that smell of oil, sweat, and damp canvas. They eat fast, laugh loud, and pretend not to think about how thin the hull really is. They call her a tin can, but she is their tin can. At the center of her world stands her captain, Ernest E. Evans, short, stocky, hard-eyed, a man who believes that a ship's honor is worth more than its survival. Evans is not supposed to be here. He should be cautious, calculating. A destroyer captain is trained to protect, not to charge, to lay smoke, screen carriers, and withdraw when heavy guns appear. But Evans believes something else, that when the enemy threatens those you are sworn to protect, you close the distance. As the morning unfolds, the men of Johnston move to their stations on instinct. Steel hatches clang shut. Damage control teams grab hoses and axes. Gun crews load 5-inch shells by hand, muscles already slick with sweat in the tropical heat. Below decks, the air is thick with diesel fumes and hot metal. The engine room roars like a living thing. Turbines scream as Johnston accelerates beyond what feels safe, beyond what feels sane. On the bridge, Evans watches the Japanese fleet grow larger by the second. He knows the math. He knows the odds. He knows exactly how this ends for ships like his. But behind him, somewhere over the horizon, are slow, fragile escort carriers filled with pilots who have no idea what is coming. Johnston is the only thing between them and annihilation. Evans does not raise his voice. He does not hesitate. Prepare to make a torpedo attack. The order passes through the ship like electricity. Fear is there, sharp, cold, undeniable, but it is buried under something heavier, duty. Johnston heels slightly as she turns toward the enemy, her bow cutting cleanly through the calm sea. Spray flies up, cold against the face. The smell of salt mixes with oil and cordite. Hands grip railings tighter. Ahead, the guns wait, and the tin can keeps coming. They were never meant to fight this war. Officially, they were Taffy 3. Task Unit 77.4.3. In reality, they were a patchwork shield. 6 escort carriers, 3 destroyers, 4 destroyer escorts. Slow ships, lightly armed. Thin decks meant to launch aircraft, not absorb battleship shells. Their planes carried depth charges and rockets for ground support, not armor-piercing bombs for capital ships. At dawn, most of their pilots were still strapping on parachutes. Some were shaving. Others were halfway through breakfast when the alarms began to howl. General quarters. The sound cuts through steel corridors like a blade. Men run. Boots hammer ladders. Helmets are pulled on crooked. Coffee spills across deck plates and is instantly forgotten. Somewhere deep in the hulls, engines wake up, coughing smoke and heat into confined spaces never meant for panic. No one in Taffy 3 had been told the truth. They believed the Japanese battleships were already sunk or retreating, that the great guns were gone, that this part of the ocean was safe. They were wrong. From the flight decks, sailors stare eastward as shapes emerge from the haze. Tall masts, thick funnels, heavy cruisers slicing through the water at speed. Battleships. The word spreads without needing to be spoken. Panic tries to take hold. It presses into the chest, makes breathing shallow, turns seconds into something slippery and unreal. These carriers can barely make 19 knots. Their hulls are not armored. A single salvo could rip one open from bow to stern. The sea that once felt wide now feels impossibly small. Smoke begins to pour from generators as destroyers race ahead to lay screens. White and black clouds bloom across the water, artificial fog meant to blind gunners whose shells weigh more than entire aircraft. On the bridges of the carriers, captains issue the only orders they can. Launch everything. Planes roar down short decks and claw into the air, some without full fuel, some without proper ordnance. Pilots do not ask what targets they will face. They only know that if they stay on deck, they will die there. Below, damage control parties stand ready with hoses that feel absurdly small. Sailors grip life jackets tighter. Someone quietly slips a letter into a pocket, sealed but unsent. And out front, between the carriers and the rising wall of steel, 3 destroyers begin to accelerate. They are not fast enough. They are not strong enough. They are all that stands in the way. On Johnston, the smokescreen stretches behind like a fragile curtain. The thunder of distant guns grows louder, deeper, more deliberate. Each Japanese salvo walks closer, probing, correcting. Water erupts again. Near misses lift the ship and slam it back down. The hull shivers. Somewhere forward, a man whispers a prayer he has not spoken since childhood. Evans watches the carriers fade behind smoke and spray. This is what Taffy 3 really is, he realizes. Not a formation, not a task unit. A line of men deciding, one ship at a time, that retreat is not an option. Johnston pushes ahead, alone at the edge of the storm. The largest naval guns in the world are now awake, and they are turning toward her. The distance closes faster than it should. At flank speed, the destroyer shudders as if she might shake herself apart. The bow slams into the swell, sending cold spray across the deck. Salt stings the eyes. The air tastes metallic now, charged with ozone and cordite drifting from guns that have not even fired yet. Ahead, the enemy grows sharper. Hull lines become clear. Gun turrets rotate with terrifying patience. Each one is a city block of steel. On the bridge, range numbers drop. The navigator calls them out, his voice steady, almost detached. The helmsman keeps the bow pointed straight into the teeth of the Japanese formation. This is no feint. This is a torpedo run. Below decks, torpedo crews move with rehearsed precision. Long steel fish rest in their tubes, warheads heavy enough to tear the side out of a cruiser. Sweat runs down faces. Hands slip, then tighten again. Someone mutters a joke that dies halfway through the sentence. They all know what happens next. The first shells land close enough to drown out thought. A thunderclap, a wall of water. The ship lurches violently to port. The sound is not like an explosion. It is deeper, heavier, a pressure wave that punches through the hull and into the chest. Light fixtures swing wildly. A man stumbles and catches himself on a bulkhead already warm from vibration. Still, the destroyer keeps coming. Fire control locks on. Torpedo angles align. The order comes down the voice pipe. Fire. One by one, the tubes kick. The ship jerks as torpedoes leave their rails, slipping into the sea and racing ahead in white, foaming wakes. For a brief, impossible moment, there is hope. A fragile, shining thought that one of those steel fish might find its mark, that a cruiser might burn, that the impossible might happen. Japanese guns answer immediately. Shells straddle the ship now. Near misses are no longer near enough. Steel screams as fragments rake the superstructure. Antennas vanish. A 5-inch mount is showered with shrapnel. Crewmen thrown to the deck like broken dolls. The smell changes. Burning paint, hot oil, electrical insulation. A direct hit slams into the ship's side, punching through thin armor like paper. The blast throws men across compartments, snaps ladders from their mounts, and kills the lights in half the ship. Emergency lamps flicker on, casting everything in a sickly red glow. Damage control teams move without waiting for orders. Hoses uncoil. Wounded men are dragged clear. Someone's hand leaves a dark smear on the deck that no amount of seawater will wash away. On the bridge, smoke pours in through shattered windows. The captain's uniform is torn. Blood runs down his face from a head wound, mixing with sweat and salt. He wipes it away with the back of his hand and keeps watching the enemy. The torpedoes are running. The Japanese formation begins to turn. Heavy ships maneuver, throwing up towering wakes as they try to avoid the unseen threat slicing toward them beneath the surface. Their gunfire falters, just for a moment. It is enough. Behind Johnston, the carriers gain precious minutes. Smoke thickens, distance grows. The destroyer has done what she was never meant to do. She has forced battleships to react. But the price comes due immediately. Another hit, then another. The engine room takes a catastrophic blow. Power falters. Speed bleeds away. The ship slows, wounded and smoking, her once clean lines jagged and broken. Still, her guns keep firing. 5-inch shells arc out, tiny sparks against monstrous hulls. Tracers streak across the sky. Every shot is an act of defiance, a refusal to accept the math of survival. The torpedo run is over. The fight is not. Johnston turns again, scarred and bleeding, placing herself once more between the enemy and the ships she is sworn to protect. Out here, in open water, there is no cover, only steel, fire, and the decision to keep going. The ship is no longer running. She is limping. Speed bleeds away knot by knot as damaged boilers struggle to breathe. The deck lists slightly now, a subtle but constant reminder that water is finding its way inside. Every wave that breaks against the hull sounds heavier than the last, as if the sea itself is testing her weakness. Below decks, heat becomes unbearable. Steam hisses from ruptured lines. The air is thick with smoke and diesel fumes that burn the lungs with every breath. Men work shirtless, faces blackened, eyes wide and focused. Pumps throb endlessly, fighting a losing battle against flooding that creeps forward inch by inch. Some compartments are already gone. Steel doors are dogged shut with men still inside them, cut off to save the rest of the ship. No one speaks about it. There is no time. There is only the next valve to close, the next fire to smother, the next wounded man to pull clear before the deck plates grow too hot to touch. Above, the guns keep firing. A 5-inch mount swings by hand now, powered systems dead. Crewmen strain against the weight, muscles screaming as they force the barrel around. Each shell is rammed home manually. Each shot shakes the mount and sends pain through already bruised shoulders. Japanese cruisers close the distance. Their fire is faster, more accurate. Shells rake the deck from bow to stern, tearing open gun shields, shredding lifelines, cutting men down where they stand. Shrapnel winds through the air like swarms of angry insects. One shell punches into the bridge. The blast throws the captain to the deck. Splinters of steel tear through the space where charts and instruments once sat. Smoke floods in, choking and blinding. For a moment, the bridge is chaos. Shouted reports, blood on hands, the smell of burning insulation. When the smoke thins, the captain rises. He is wounded badly now. One shoe is gone. His uniform hangs in tatters. Blood darkens his trousers and runs down into the scuppers. But he stays upright, gripping the railing as if the ship itself is the only thing keeping him alive. He refuses to leave the bridge. The destroyer turns again, placing herself broadside to the enemy to bring what guns remain to bear. It is a suicidal angle. Everyone knows it. Broadside means exposure. Broadside means death, but it also means fire. Shells leave the barrels one after another, flashes blooming against the gray morning. Hits are claimed on a Japanese cruiser. Fires start. Smoke pours from her superstructure. It is not enough to sink her, but it is enough to force her to turn away. Another minute, then another. Those minutes matter. The sea around the destroyer is a chaos of splashes and wreckage. Water geysers tower higher than the mast. Near misses lift the ship bodily and slam her back down, throwing men against bulkheads hard enough to knock the breath from their lungs. Then comes the hit that breaks her back. A heavy shell crashes into the engine spaces. The blast snuffs out remaining power like a candle. The lights die. The engines wind down with a tortured whine, and then silence. The ship drifts, dead in the water. For a heartbeat, there is an awful stillness. No vibration, no forward motion, just the sound of distant gunfire and the hiss of steam escaping into shattered compartments. A destroyer that cannot move is already a wreck. Enemy fire concentrates instantly. Shells march along the hull, methodical and merciless. One gun mount after another falls silent. Crews are cut down or driven away by flame and shrapnel. Still, a few guns keep firing. As long as a single barrel can be trained, as long as one shell can be lifted, the fight continues. The destroyer is no longer a ship. She is a statement, and the sea is rising to meet her. The ship answers the helm no longer. She drifts, broadside to the enemy, her bow slowly falling off with the swell. Water pours through rents in the hull, sloshing across deck plates, slick with oil and blood. The list grows worse. Loose gear slides with a hollow clatter, punctuated by the distant crack of enemy guns. What power remains is local. What coordination exists is shouted, hand-signaled, improvised. On deck, surviving gun crews work like ghosts. One mount fires its last rounds by hand, the crew exposed, unshielded. Each recoil slams the barrel back with a violent jolt that rattles teeth and bones. The smell of burned powder hangs thick in the air, mixing with smoke and salt until every breath tastes the same, bitter and final. A shell lands close, too close. The blast sweeps the deck clean. Men are thrown, helmets torn away, bodies slammed against steel that is already hot enough to burn. When the smoke clears, fewer stand back up. The captain is still there. Wounded beyond what should be survivable, he refuses assistance. He waves off men trying to pull him below, shouting over the roar of battle. His voice is hoarse now, raw from smoke and shouting, but the words are clear enough. Keep firing. Protect the carriers. It is not bravado. It is not madness. It is command. Below decks, damage control has become triage. Flooding spreads faster than pumps can manage. Fires burn unchecked in compartments that no one can reach anymore. The ship's interior feels smaller with every minute, corridors narrowing as heat and smoke press in. Someone reports that steering is gone completely. Someone else reports that communications are dead. None of it changes anything. The enemy closes in. Japanese cruisers circle like predators, pouring fire into the immobilized destroyer. Shells tear open the hull at the waterline. Seawater floods in, ice-cold and relentless, rising past ankles, knees, waists. Men abandon guns that can no longer bear. Others keep firing until their mounts are smashed beyond recognition. One group reloads by passing shells hand to hand through smoke so thick it feels solid. Then the order comes. Abandon ship. It moves through the wreck slowly, almost reluctantly. Some do not hear it at first. Others pretend they did not. Leaving feels wrong, like betrayal. The captain stays behind. He stands on the fantail now, silhouetted against smoke and flame, steady despite the list. The sea churns close beneath him. Spray rises and soaks his torn uniform. He looks back once, toward the center of the ship, toward men he will never see again. There is no speech, no last flourish, only presence. One by one, sailors climb over the side. Some jump. Some lower wounded comrades into the water. Life jackets hit the surface and bob uselessly among wreckage and oil. The destroyer shudders. A deep grinding sound runs through her hull, as if the steel itself is protesting. The list becomes a roll. Water rushes across the deck in a solid sheet. She is dying, and still, for a few more seconds, a gun fires. Then even that stops. The sea takes her slowly, deliberately, as if aware of what it is claiming. The water is shockingly cold. It steals breath first. Muscles seize. The body reacts before the mind can catch up, forcing air out in a violent gasp that tastes of oil and salt. Around the survivors, the sea is littered with debris. Planks, twisted metal, empty shell casings, pieces of a ship that was a home only minutes ago. They turn in the water. Behind them, the destroyer lists hard to port. Her screws rise briefly into the air, dripping seawater like blood from a wound. Smoke pours from her insides as the last trapped air escapes in a deep, hollow roar. Then she rolls, not violently, not dramatically, just enough. The stern slides under first. The bow lifts, hesitates, and then follows. For a moment, her name is still visible on the hull, letters streaked with soot and rust, before the sea closes over them. She is gone. Silence rushes in to fill the space where gunfire had lived. Only the slap of waves remains. And the cries. Men cling to life jackets, to floating wreckage, to each other. Some are wounded badly. Others are too exhausted to speak. Oil coats the surface in a shimmering black sheen that sticks to skin and burns the eyes. The sun climbs higher. Hours pass. Thirst sets in quickly, a dry, aching pull that turns thoughts sluggish and cruel. Lips crack. Salt stiffens clothing until it feels like armor. Sharks circle at a distance, drawn by blood and sound, patient and unseen beneath the surface. One by one, voices fade. Some men slip under without warning, strength finally gone. Others stop responding, staring at the sky, as if waiting for something to change. Those who can still move keep count in their heads, not of the dead, but of the living. They do not know yet that it worked. They do not know that the Japanese force, confused, bloodied, and convinced they were facing a much larger fleet, has turned away, that the escort carriers behind them are still afloat, that pilots will land on decks that should have been obliterated. They only know that they held. Rescue comes late. Small boats, destroyers, hands reaching down, hauling survivors from the water with gentle urgency. Some men are too weak to climb. They are lifted like children, wrapped in blankets, given sips of water that feel like salvation. Out of a crew of hundreds, fewer than half survive. They look back at the empty sea. There is nothing there now. No wreckage, no marker, no grave. Only water. History records tonnage sunk, ships lost, battles won and lost. But none of that explains what happened off Samar. A destroyer did not defeat a battleship fleet. A tin can did not overpower steel giants. Men did. Men who knew the odds. Men who felt fear as sharply as anyone ever has. Men who chose, in a moment that allowed no delay, to place themselves between destruction and those they were sworn to protect. Courage is often described as loud, as charging forward with a shout. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is standing your ground when retreat would save you. Sometimes it is staying on a bridge that is already burning. Sometimes it is continuing to load a gun by hand while the sea rises at your feet. There is no monument tall enough for a ship like Johnston. No inscription that can fully hold what she did in a single morning. But every escort carrier that lived, every pilot that flew again, every sailor who went home because someone else did not, they are the monument. The sea keeps her now, and in that deep, lightless place, a small destroyer rests, having faced the largest guns in the world and never turned away.